Oh, good morning. Not quite snap news headlines, but once again we're just having a wee bit of difficulty tapping into the internet, and I must say that the folks down at O2 are very helpful, and it's probably my flippy fingers, but here we are anyway with Mirador Television, broadcasting out of Lewes in East Sussex, sitting on the High Street this morning. But yesterday morning we came from the station, and at 6 o'clock I reported that the trains were all running normally because it rolled into Lewes station perfectly on time, perfectly with plenty of seats, and it was a good train to catch. What they didn't do was tell us ahead of time that that train was going to sit there for the next half hour, and the reason being that there was flooding in the tunnel in Haywards Heath. Nothing wrong with the flooding in the tunnel at Haywards Heath. What it is, it stops the trains. But the train company can't be blamed for that, so it's an act of nature. But first of all, they suggested they were going to send us by bus. Everybody roared up the front, no bus. Then we were sent back and to get onto the train that we just abandoned. Right now we're on the train. The flooding situation had been clearly explained in the meantime, and then off the train set. Now, there were several comments on social media yesterday about you get onto the train and it takes an extra hour, according to the information given by the train companies, is poo. The 6 o'clock train left at 6:30. And they turned it into the 6:15. So instead of going to London Bridge, it was going to Victoria, which suited me fine. I didn't mind that in the least. But as we ploughed along, it became very obvious that we weren't going to go very fast anywhere. And we waited for a while to get onto the main line at Heathrow, for Haywards Heath, and we sat, and then eventually we got onto the line, and then we sat, and we edged, and eventually we got through Wivelsfield to Haywards Heath, where we sat, because the part of the train that joins it there was also delayed, and it was 3 or 4 trains back. So we sat. And so the train eventually took off, and we edged north, and edged. And eventually we got to Three Bridges. And from Three Bridges we edged. And then we got to Gatwick. Now, in fairness, things improved after Gatwick, which has always been a bit of a bottleneck as far as points are concerned. But we didn't go that fast, and we didn't avoid all problems. And when we got to East Croydon, another major junction on the railway line, guess what? We edged. And then out of East Croydon we did quite well until we got to Clapham Junction, where that's a big junction. In fact, I understand it's the biggest in the United Kingdom, possibly the biggest in the world. And we edged, and we got into Clapham Junction. And then we did get a clear run and got into Victoria without any problem at 9:20. So we turned up for the 6:15. Some people had turned up for the 6 o'clock London Bridge train at 6:15, and at 9:20, 6:15, 7:15, 8:15, 9:15, more than 3 hours, we actually got to our destination. Now, if that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be. One can't pump water out just at the nod of a hat. Understood. But to say that you may have 60 minutes added to your journey is just absolute rubbish and nonsense. And the one big criticism that I have of Well, I have two really. First of all, they're corporate bullies. They've been trying to get rid of the runaway for God knows how many years, and never managed to do it, thank goodness, because the spirited citizens of Lewes said, no, we're not having it. We like our little bistro. Go away. And eventually, after 3 or 4 tries, they did go away. And thank goodness, because that lovely little bistro is still there, and we could have a cup of coffee yesterday while we waited for the first train or the first bus or whatever was going to take us in London direction. But they are absolutely lousy when it comes to communication. Oh, yes, they've got the gubbins. There's somebody somewhere in the system, and it's broadcast to all stations. And yes, you get fairly regular pieces of information. The trouble is that they're wishfully thinking when it comes to their operations, and they are an operationally minded organisation. So I can only come to the conclusion that they fib. So when they say 60 minutes onto the next or onto your train on journey this morning, and it takes 3.5, is they know very well it's going to take 3.5. But they don't say anything in case they upset you, upsetting the clients. I mean, that's a bit like Safeway, I suppose, knowing that it's selling rancid butter and not telling you until you get it home. And then you open it up and there's a little note that says, this is rancid butter, do not use. Oh, well, can you imagine the chaos? But hopefully things will be back to normal. The trains were reasonably okay coming back last night, except that because of the chaos, once again, by the time we actually got to Clapham Junction, leaving Clapham Junction, the trains were jam-packed. People standing. They had to stand all the way. Now, once again, the train companies didn't react to their own, excuse me, I got a little tickle under the nose this morning. They didn't react to their own operational practices. They decided that they would have half-hour trains from a good many destinations. Terrific. Fine. The only trouble is that they split the trains in two. So whereas at one time you would get a 12-carriage train at 8:45 in the morning, it then reverts now to a 4-carriage train. But the traffic hasn't changed just because they're going every half hour. It's still very, very, very busy, and people have to stand. Now, if you're going to make that sort of change, you actually invest in the hardware to do it. You invest in more carriages so that you can have at least an 8-carriage train if you've cut it down from 12 and you've increased a half hour. But have they? Well, not that I'm aware. I haven't seen any major announcements about investment in new carriages, new trains, or new anything for that matter. And that is sad, because what they do is give the veneer of, look what we're doing under privatisation. And believe me, anybody who says put it back in the hands of the state, they've forgotten what it was like when British Rail was British Rail. The only good thing they had was a buffet, which the private people have taken away. But other than that, the railway system was creaking, and it didn't do very well at all. Now, right across the road, I'm just going to show you here, because there's Adam going to work, and he'll be on your screens later in the day. There he is. Yeah. Adam Hare, one of our new star presenters. He's off to do his daytime job, and then he'll be with you later in the day. Morning, Adam.
Morning, Kate.
There we go. Get used to seeing him. You see, we're all up and about at this hour of the morning. Anyway, we're all running out of time, and there is one other point that I want to raise, and that is that the Lewes Council, whether it's because I barked a bit louder than usual, I found in my inbox, in my email inbox yesterday afternoon, it was in the junk section, it was probably where it should be, a note from Lewes District Council saying that they were responding to my complaint, and I would be advised of the result in 5 working days. And it gave a number. But since I got 3 complaints, and none of them have been responded in 5 working days. In fact, in one case, it's almost a year now without any response. I've got to go back and look at my files to find out what complaint they're responding to. So it's almost like a wonderful, wonderful, let's open up an Aladdin's cave and see what's inside. But anyway, later on I can find out which complaint is being responded to. In the meantime, the various issues rumble on. We'll take another look at Cabinet. Don't want to warn you about Cabinet, but there is a Cabinet meeting scheduled. There is a scrutiny committee scheduled. There is, in the middle of next month, a full council meeting scheduled. So those are things that we need to take a look at and see how they're progressing. Until tomorrow, let's say toodle pip, and I look forward to being with you. Toodle pip.